18 special called county commission meeting. I'm going to ask Sheriff Fuson if he would to call the meeting to order. If you would, please remain standing for the pledge led by Commissioner Brandon Butts and our invocation by Commissioner Creek.
All rise. Oh yes, this Honorable Board of County Commissioners is now in session pursuant to adjournment. Now may God save this state and this Honorable Board of County Commissioners.
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Let us pray. Our Father and our God, we thank you for your love and your watch care. We thank you for the legislative body that's gathered here today and they're willing to serve. We thank you for the efforts that have been put out by the Budget Committee and our mayor and our finance section. And we just guide and direct us now in our endeavors. We just pray that we respect each other when our views differ. It says in the Bible, let the words of my mouth and the meditation of my heart be acceptable in thy sight. O Lord, my strength and my redeemer. In Christ's name I pray. Amen.
Amen. Ms. Cottrell, would you please read the roll, please, ma'am?
We have 19 present, 2 absent.
Thank you. Commissioners, our first item of business is approval of the July the 8th, 2019 minutes. Is there a motion for approval? Commissioner Gannon, second. Commissioner Keene, any discussion? If you would, please register your vote. Would anyone like to change their vote? Ms. Cottrell, would you please tally the vote?
19 yeses, 0 noes, 0 abstentions.
Thank you, ma'am. Commissioners, next are resolutions 1974 and 1975, and this is really kind of a chicken before the egg, but without objection, we're going to vote on 1975 first. Those are our appropriations, and so if we set a tax rate, we've got to have the appropriations that max it. So I don't know, but hopefully it'll be easier if we go through 1975 first and then set a tax rate to that would match the appropriations that are approved. So without objection, our first resolution is 1975, a resolution making appropriations for various funds, departments, institutions, offices, and agencies of Montgomery County, Tennessee for the fiscal year beginning July 1, 2019 and ending June 30, 2020, and approving the funding of the nonprofit charitable organizations in accordance with TCA 59109. And Commissioners, I would bring to your attention as well as part of this approval process, at the back of that resolution are all the department heads' salaries, and that's something that has to be brought before you, so that is part of Resolution 1975. So is there a motion for approval for 1975? Commissioner Riccone, second. Commissioner Pritchard, any discussion? If you would, please register your vote. Would anyone like to change their vote? Ms. Cottrell, would you please tally the vote?
16 yeses, 3 noes, 0 abstentions.
Thank you, ma'am. Next is Resolution 1974, a resolution to levy a tax rate in Montgomery County, Tennessee for the fiscal year beginning July 1, 2019. Is there a motion for approval? Commissioner Bryant, second. Commissioner Riccone, any discussion on 1974? If you would, please register your vote. Oh, excuse me. Hold it. Cut that off. Hang on. Let them get that vote off if you can, Skip. Can you get that off? Okay. Commissioner Pritchard, I know you were in queue. Go ahead.
Yes, sir. I'd like to propose an amendment to Resolution 1975.
4?
Was it 4? We're on 5.
We've already passed 5. We're on 17-4 now.
Okay. Did I have the wrong number on my amendment?
No, ma'am, as we discussed, we took 1975 first, and 1974 was second. But Ms. Pritchard, I'll be glad to, if you want to discuss something or have a motion, please go right. Yeah, and then we'll have to go back and amend the appropriation. That's why it's chicken before the egg, or the egg before the chicken, whichever one. Go ahead, Commissioner Pritchard.
It's just my mistake because I thought it was 1974 that this amendment was proposed for, but I'm proposing that in the account 101-58-500-000058-53100, there was $185,000 that was budgeted for use towards the multipurpose event center. And I'd like to make that following amendment to Resolution 1975, that we cut $105,000 out of 101-58-500-000058-53100. That was to be used towards the MPEC. We'll move $30,000 of the MPEC funds to account 101-51-300-000051-57180, motor vehicles, for the purchase of a vehicle for the county mayor's office, and we'll use the remaining $50,000 for the purpose of a study to determine the feasibility and need for a juvenile detention facility in Montgomery County.
Mr. Taylor, I have to ask you, would that affect anything we're doing on the levy itself?
He saves us $105,000.
So do we need to, we still got to vote on that, so that'll have to be on an appropriation. So there's an amendment before you. Is there a second? Commissioner Leverett. Anyone like to, any discussion on the amendment itself? Yes. Commissioner Beal, I know everybody else is in queue. If you would, turn on Commissioner Beal's microphone, please.
I don't know about anybody else, but I'm confused at this point. Well, right, I understand that we just passed it, but I'm not sure what exactly are we amending at this point. That's what I'm saying. It's already been passed. We just voted for it.
So you have to be reconsidering your 1975.
Okay.
Her amendment goes to 1975.
Okay. So I guess we need the motion to reconsider 1975? That's right. Okay. That's fine. Whatever we need to do, we're going to do it right. So is there a motion to reconsider 1975? Commissioner Leverett, is there a second? Commissioner Keene, any discussion on, and Ms. Cottrell, I'm sorry, you got this?
That's okay.
To reconsider 1975? If you would, please register your vote. Would anyone like to change your vote? Ms. Cottrell, would you please tally the vote?
16 yeses, 3 noes, 0 abstentions.
Thank you, ma'am. Now, is there a motion for approval for 1975? Commissioner Pritchard, is there a second? Commissioner Riccone. Now, Commissioner Pritchard, if you'd like to read your amendment again, please, ma'am.
In account 101-58-500-000058-53100, there was $185,000 budgeted for use towards the multipurpose event center. I would like to make the following amendment to Resolution 1975. cut 105,000 out of the 101-58500000058531000 that was to be used towards the multipurpose event center. Move 30,000 of that to account number 101-51300000051578180 motor vehicles for the purpose of a vehicle for the county mayor's office, and use the remaining 50,000 for the purpose of a study to determine the feasibility and need for a juvenile detention facility in Montgomery County.
Is there a second? Commissioner Leverett, any discussion on the proposed amendment? Who? Commissioner Leverett, on the amendment, on this amendment. If you would, please register your vote. Would anyone like to change their vote? Ms. Cottrell, would you please tally the vote?
Of 16 yeses, 3 noes, and 0 abstentions.
Thank you, ma'am. All right, now it's back to 1975 as amended. Commissioner Leverett?
I wanted to offer an amendment. Is that the right time? I'm so
Yes, ma'am.
confused as to what's going on right now. Okay. I'd like to add the following amendment, that we cut $1,785,000 from Fund 171, and that we add for Eastland Park, and that we add back into Fund 171 for the following: $800,000 design for Stokes Field. This was the original request from the Budget Committee, and it was cut to $600,000. $275,000 for Barksdale design. $200,000 for Barksdale construction. $170,000 allocated for Fredonia Phase 2. I'd also like to add $33,000 for one commercial UTV for Barksdale. $27,000 for one infield groomer for Barksdale. $14,000 for one commercial grade zero-turn mower for Barksdale. $37,000 for one commercial grade progressive mower for Barksdale, for a total of $111,000 for capital outlay for Parks and Recreation. I don't know how to.
So we have amendment number 2, and I won't go back through it, but I think it's eliminating Eastland Park.
Yes.
And you're adding back Stokesfield and Barksdale School, the design for Stokes, construction for Barksdale 200, design for Barksdale 175, 170 for Fredonia Phase 2, and then some equipment that was $111,000. Is that correct?
Yeah, did you say 275 for Barksdale or 175? Should be 275.
275.
275 for Barksdale.
For design and 200 for construction at Barksdale.
And 170 for Fredonia Phase 2.
Okay. Is there a second? Commissioner Woodruff. Any discussion on amendment number 2? Commissioner Beal?
Thank you. Aren't these parks owned by the city and not the county?
No,
They are not.
They're all on county property, owned by the school system.
So the county is in charge of that then?
The school system.
Okay.
And I don't know, Commissioner Albert may want to speak to it, but I know that one of the issues with the city actually supports both Barksdale and Stokes League, or Stokesfield, those two leagues, and Montgomery County supports the Civitan League, which is St. Bethlehem, the Glen Ellen Park, which is the central area, and then Woodlawn, which is the Woodlawn Park. And I think part of the issue with, and Mr. Albert can speak to it probably better than I can, but part of the issue with the city supporting those leagues is they're not, because they don't own the property, they cannot get grants for netting, for bases, those type things. And Commissioner Albert, you may just want to speak a little bit. I don't know if I did a good job of explaining that or not.
That is correct, because the county, it's indeeded to the school system. The city cannot apply for any type grants, because one of the criteria is you have to have the deed of the property that you're applying for a grant for. And where the county, where even though the school system, well, I think would be in favor of us go and co-signing with the deed for us to be eligible to apply for grants. But speaking to the amendment.
Yeah, with all due respect, if you want to speak to the amendment, I'll let you speak to it, but Commissioner Knight is next. Just chime in, Commissioner Albert. I can't let you jump in front. Commissioner Knight.
Well, I just wanted to ask the question of how does that affect the capital projects budget and by how much? Is it going to reduce it? Is it going to increase it? What's the deal?
I don't know. Can't do the math off the top of my head, but 1,795,000, was that it?
Lowers it by $340,000.
Say again?
It lowers the capital projects by $340,000.
Did that answer your question? Commissioner Harper.
Thank you, Mayor. I'll speak to this amendment real quickly. I think we have a once-in-a-lifetime opportunity at the Eastland Park property. We've worked on this for quite a while, and it's a great opportunity for us to acquire land, and it would be a different style park, nature trails, walking. I think it would be a great asset to the county. I know it would help in one of the common complaints I get in Sango is the fact that we're being overdeveloped. This would be 60 acres that would not be developed, that would enhance the community. I firmly ask you to help us out and let us go forward with this. I think it'd be a great asset to the county. And that's about it. Thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner Harper. Commissioner Joe Smith.
I'd just like to ask everybody not to be in favor of this amendment. Eastland Park is like Commissioner Harper said, a good opportunity for Montgomery County to buy a ready-made park. Has miles of walking trail, mature trees, around 60 acres, right off of Sango Road where most of the development in Sango is happening at the moment, with over 1,200 houses in the last year or so being approved. We need this park. District 3 is mostly Sango, but there are other communities in District 3. And the property values out there assessed at a much higher value than a lot of the rest of the county because it's considered prime real estate with its location in Nashville. They're paying their fair share of taxes. They deserve a park. There's nothing in District 3. There's one on the outskirts. Port Royal is a state park, which we know that the state has been lacking in funding for it, and Dunbar Cave. And we recently put something over in Fredonia, which is a community center, but there is not a park there yet. That'll be phase 2, hopefully in a few years, or hopefully next year. But this park being ready-made is a great opportunity for Montgomery County to come in here and have a park for the Sango citizens for their years of paying more and more taxes than the majority of Montgomery County.
Thank you, sir. Commissioner Albert.
I respect Commissioner Leverett about what she's trying to do for the parks, but along with the capital outlay, there's additional personnel, there's operating cost that comes along with it. I would like if she'd do a friendly, offer a friendly amendment that if we just ask for design dollars for the 2 parks, which is equal to $875,000, that way the city can continue doing what they're doing. We can be in the background designing and move forward, this time next year if it's feasible to do that. But right now, our parks are struggling to get personnel, period. You just can't find people that want to work. So I think it would be an extra burden if we take these on, and I'm sure the city will want us to take them. They don't want to delay in us not taking them for a year. They're ready to give them up. So I would, as bad as I hate to say it, don't support this amendment, and let's move forward with maybe just the design dollars, which will give us a leg up this time next year. Thank you.
Okay. Commissioner Gannon.
So I have to agree with the Eastland Park and all the discussion that's gone on here, but I also agree that Barksdale and Stokesfield and that, I know they're suffering and they need some improvements. So I'd like to offer a friendly amendment that we keep Eastland Green Park in the budget, that we, for the Stokes Barksdale Field, that we approve the design dollars for this, and then in a year from now, we take over the parks and then start the construction, because it'll take at least 6 months plus anyway to do the designs for all these fields and things of that nature. And then we could help pay for it. We could take a penny from county general and move it to county projects, and that will take care of part of it, and then have the rest of it come out of reserves. With the back notion that we are going to get some internet sales money this year. I know we can't really budget on that, but if the numbers come out to be true, what we're doing, then a small portion of that would help take care of this in addition to that. And talking to Commissioner Taylor, I know we've got, or Commissioner Taylor, Councilman Budgets Taylor over there, that we do have $1 million sitting over there in the wastewater in order to fix these sink funds that could be appropriated maybe towards helping that too, if we want to get in further discussion that's kind of sitting there idle at this point in time. So I'd like to offer that as a friendly amendment if you'd accept it.
Commissioner Leverett, I'll come back to you because it's yours. I'm going to go to Commissioner Pritchard, then I'll come back to you, Commissioner Leverett, and then to you, Commissioner Bill, since you both spoke.
I do want to make a statement in reference to this amendment.
Go ahead, Commissioner.
Stokesfield and Barksdale are both very iconic parks to Clarksville. Stokes has been utilized more so than probably any other, and I'm quite sure many parents, many grandparents have little leaguers that have played in Stokes. We only have 3 baseball parks at Heritage. Stokes takes the overflow. I've known many young people who've coached kids over there, and it's just been something that is well used. Eastland Green is something for the future. I'm not saying it's not a good idea. I think we need to have a park on that side of Montgomery County, but I think that's more of a future, which we can put into effect maybe next year. But Stokesfield in Barksdale, those are used, and we need to upgrade and update. We need to do that, and especially in my opinion, we probably need to do Stokesfield just in memory of Mr. Stokes, who's given so much to Clarksville, Montgomery County. Thank you.
Thank you. Commissioner Bill, actually, Commissioner Leverett, you were in front of him, but if you don't mind, I'll go to him just to stay in order. Commissioner Bill?
Okay. I'm kind of looking at this, I think, a little differently than most are. I am here simply for the tax rate. So I don't know if we're going to have long discussions about a park that I don't think we need at this point. I think we need to focus on getting the tax rate down as low as possible. So I'm going to ask you to vote no on this amendment, and let's just vote this down altogether.
Commissioner Leverett?
Thank you, Mayor. With all due respect to my colleagues, I appreciate everything, but on March 7th, 2019, I have in my hand the minutes of the Montgomery County Parks and Rec Committee, and it says in the minutes, and I was actually present, Mr. Arbert played a short video showing the Stokesfield Park that showed the conditions of the buildings, fencing, and fields to be very run down and in need of repair and maintenance. He shared a brief summary of the proposed renovations and the updates. As of Friday's paper, we do have a member of the Stokes family that was present in that meeting who has passed away, and I have his obituary in my hand. Since 2014 and probably prior, since I did my research, we have been talking about Stokes Field, whether it was city or county, repairing this field. In this community, they may not be a higher income, but they do pay their taxes. They do love their children, and they do love their community. And I don't want to pit one community against another one, because I don't think that's what we're here for. But I think we have a responsibility to, one, be stewards of our word. We gave an indication to this family that we would take this field and that we would fix it and that we would honor their name. And I think we need to honor our word. It's plain and simple, commissioners. We need to honor our word. But to Mr. Aubert and to Mr. Gannon, I will go ahead and I will accept your friendly amendment for the designs for Stokes Field and the designs for Barksdale, as long as that stays in the budget. I would like to see the design for Stokes Field, and I'd like to see the design for Barksdale. Are we clear on that? Are we good?
Well, I think I think there are two separate friendly amendments.
Sure.
One was for 800,000 for, if I wrote this down right, 800,000 for design at Stokes Field and 275,000 for design at Barksdale.
Yes, sir.
And there was no mention, and that would be cutting the 200,000 for construction at Barksdale. So that it was, Commissioner Alberts was to still remove Eastland Park, correct me if I'm wrong? So you're gonna add it?
Would keep Eastland Park in. The only thing would change and during the budget process, the 800,000 was cut to 600,000. So that's where I come up with the 875, 600 for Stokes and 275 for Barksdale. And everything else stays in, it's the same.
So we're adding 275 to the budget.
We've went through over a year process
No,
of
you're
trying to
adding
get this
800
Eastland
You're
Park.
adding 875,000 to the budget.
Pardon me?
You're adding 875,000 to the budget. So I would think if you accepted a friendly amendment, it would be Commissioner Gannon's that discussed the pennies. And Mr. Gannon, you may want to repeat that.
That a penny be moved from county general to capital projects to take care of a portion of it, and the rest to come from reserves. Both projects, both designs.
Okay, repeat that again for me.
That we design Barksdale and Stokes Field, we keep Eastland into the budget, and that we move a penny from county general to capital projects to pay for some of the 827, I think was the number, and the remaining balance to come out of reserves.
Mr. Chair, that's an amendment on the main motion.
That's amendment on her motion.
Her motion,
On Stokes Field and Barksdale.
I understand, but your motion is to amend, will cause the main motion to be increased, the budget increase of $875,000. Her motion was to move money with no change in the
Yes.
value of the main motion.
Okay.
There's actually a reduction.
It was actually a reduction? Okay. So her motion, if it's revised to change the main body, then your motion should be reserved, respectfully, Commissioner, for another motion on the main body of the original motion.
So you're saying she'd have to pull her motion and then we make this a motion?
You'd vote on hers, or she could pull hers, either way, but you're actually changing the main body of the original motion because you're adding money to the budget.
Okay.
Her
Okay,
motion,
whatever.
her
However you say
motion,
we have to do it, it's fine.
right, so she would need to withdraw her motion or vote on her motion and
And then come back with my motion.
then come back with yours.
Commissioner Knight, would you like to give Commissioner Leverett an opportunity to do that, or would you like to speak?
I'll give her an opportunity.
I think she would have to withdraw it because I know Ms. Cottrell has it recorded as such, and it'll have to be a new motion, and Ms. Cottrell will need to be able to write that down.
Excuse me, Mayor, can we get a copy of that once it's?
Of what what Commissioner Gannon is proposing is a
That's getting
friendly
a little
amendment, which is not a
confusing.
friendly amendment, even though. Before we go forward, Jeff, what does that do to County General?
Moving one penny, it would take out $471,000 of fund balance. And if my math is correct, it's going to add $404,000 in expenditures to capital projects.
Okay. So if we had to, if there wasn't unanticipated revenues, you really need to budget for that 400 in capital, right?
Yes, sir.
So where are you going to get it?
That's what I'm looking for, sir.
Huh?
That's what I'm looking for right now. I think Commissioner Gannon had mentioned.
Internet
stormwater
sales
management,
tax?
The internet sales tax, that could be one option. I think he mentioned the stormwater management, that's the other option. That's about $1 million there. The internet sales tax, if that's $1 million, that would cover it as well. Yeah, but if we had the internet sales tax and it's $1 million, there's no need to move the penny as well.
Or the stormwater?
Or the stormwater. Stormwater's 2.12 pennies.
So Commissioner Leverett, would you like to withdraw your motion?
Do I need to restate it some kind of
Well,
way?
I think we'll help, I think what your goal is, and I don't want to speak for you, but I think your goal is to start the process on Barksdale and Stokesfield.
Yes.
And I think you're comfortable, correct me if I'm wrong, with $875,000, with $600 going towards design of Stokes and $275 for the design of Barksdale.
Yes.
And so I think we can accomplish that through what Commissioner Gannon is proposing. But to do that, you're going to need to withdraw your motion, and somebody will need to withdraw the second. I don't know who seconded it.
Who say? I don't know. Okay.
Do y'all know, Teresa, do you know who seconded it?
Woodruff.
Who? Commissioner Woodruff? Would you like to withdraw it?
Okay. But then I need to restate it. Is that correct?
We'll get you there.
Okay. 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 Yes. Then I'd like to
And
withdraw the
Commissioner Woodruff,
motion.
you good with withdrawing your second? Sir?
Am I hot yet?
Yes,
Okay,
sir.
Now we are. I want to say I agree with Commissioner Leverett, direction she want to go, because Stokefield is in repair and it's been put on the back burner for years. So the direction she's going, I'm supporting that.
Okay. Okay, so I think you'll withdraw it. So I think the motion would be, and Commissioner Gannon, you may want to make this motion because you mentioned 2 or 3 different funding sources. So I'll let you choose it. If you, Commissioner Leverett, if you're okay, this would be related to what you're speaking of Stokes and Barksdale. And Commissioner Gannon, would you like to state your motion?
We do the design for Barksdale and Stokesfield, 600 for one and 275 for the other, total of 875. And that we take the funding, we take from county general 1 penny and put it towards capital projects to help with that funding, and the remaining balance to come from either the stormwater or the internet sales. 2 pennies? All right, so I'd like to change that from 2 pennies.
Can I interrupt you?
Yes, sir.
Why don't you just take it from one of those 2 and don't mess with the penny going to county general? Would that not be the simplest thing to do?
Well, the stormwater's in county general, so what we have to do, let me figure out something.
Is dedicate
We'd have to move those pennies from county general.
whatever the
to
pennies are
capital
required to
projects.
fund the 875 from
Yes.
stormwater to Stokesville, Barksdale Field.
It would take.
I agree.
It would take 1.86 pennies dead on to
So
fund
the
those.
motion would be to move 1.86 pennies
From county general to capital projects,
and taking it from stormwater?
taking it from stormwater. You want to take it from stormwater, or you want us to take it from internet sales?
You got
Jeff?
that,
I don't think
Commissioner?
you could budget it from internet sales tax because
'Cause
we don't know what that
it
figure
is.
is yet.
I know, I agree. Okay. I'm
Ms.
good with it that
Cottrell,
way.
do you have that?
I think that we have it,
So-
but I'd like to get it in writing once we're done.
Okay,
with it.
so the
That's
motion will be to
to keep in.
divert 1.86 pennies from stormwater at a county general to capital projects for Stokes Field for 600,000 and Barksdale School, or Barksdale Field for 275,000 for design.
Yes, sir. My only question to the commission and yourself would be the remaining 1.14 pennies worth of appropriations in stormwater management. Would you want to leave that there?
Sure.
Sure. So, does everybody understand the motion? Okay, well, the motion is we're gonna move 1.87 pennies from county general stormwater, 1.86, excuse me, 1.86 pennies from county general stormwater. We're gonna move that to the capital projects fund, 171, and it will be specifically $600,000 for the design of Stokes Field and $275,000 for the design of Barksdale Field. And that's the motion. Is there a second? Commissioner Leverett, would you like to second it? Yes. Okay. So we have a motion and a second. Commissioner Knight?
How does that affect the capital projects fund? We're adding, we're subtracting,
It's funded. It's funded through the penny.
Okay.
Correct.
Okay.
You're just taking it from one fund to another fund. Commissioner Beal?
So this is not changing the tax rate? No. Okay, thank you.
Commissioner Leverett?
I just wanted to make sure that the stormwater is a good fund, right? The money is there, right? Okay.
In the appropriation
okay.
resolution, so that will be amended.
That's all I need to know.
Commissioner Ray?
After all this discussion, Eastland Park will still be left in.
That's correct.
Thank you.
The motion is only to change the pennies. All right, the motion's in front of you for amendment number 2. Please don't ask me to repeat it. If you would, please register your vote. Would anyone like to change your vote? Ms. Cottrell, would you please tally the vote?
With 18 yeses, 1 no, and 0 abstentions.
Thank you, ma'am. All right, any other discussion on 1875? If you're wanting to make an amendment, I would think this would be the time to do it. What? I'm sorry? Okay, 1975, excuse me. All right, we're now voting on 1975 as amended. The First Amendment is the 185 being cut down to 105, 30,000 being appropriated for a vehicle, and 50,000 being appropriated for a study for a juvenile detention facility. And the Second Amendment is moving 1.86 pennies from county general to, from stormwater, county general, to capital projects with 600,000 going towards Stokes Field design and 275,000 going towards Barksdale design. Is there a motion for approval? Commissioner Riccone, is there a second? Commissioner Pritchard, any discussion? If you would, please register your vote. Would anyone like to change your vote? Ms. Cottrell, would you please tally the vote?
With 18 yeses, 1 no, 0 abstentions.
Thank you, ma'am. Resolution 1974 is a resolution to levy a tax rate in Montgomery County, Tennessee for the fiscal year beginning July 1, 2019. Is there a motion for approval? Commissioner Riccone, is there a second? Commissioner Pritchard, any discussion? Commissioner Gannon.
Yes, sir. Just as a point of clarification, Jeff, do we need to move some pennies under this? So there needs to be an adjustment to there.
You need to make an amendment to move those 2 pennies from county general over to capital, well, the 1.86 pennies, excuse me. Over
So I'd
from
like to
county
make an
general.
amendment there that we move 1.86 pennies from county general to capital projects.
Is there a second? All that is supporting Commissioner Bryant. Any discussion on the amendment? On the amendment? Commissioner Knight?
No, nothing on it.
Commissioner Harper?
No.
Okay. We're now voting on the amendment to 1974, which is basically moving the pennies that we just appropriated for those 2 designs of those ball fields. If you would, please register your vote. Would anyone like to change their vote? Ms. Cottrell, would you please tally the vote?
17 yeses, 2 noes, and 0 abstentions.
Thank you, ma'am. All right, now back to 1974 as amended. Is there a motion for approval? Commissioner Riccone, second Commissioner Pritchard. Any discussion? What, I'm sorry? Commissioner Beal?
Is this where we start cutting stuff?
No, sir. That was in the appropriations.
That's what I thought. Thank you.
Commissioner Harper?
Thank you, Mayor. I'd urge my fellow commissioners in looking at the tax rate of 307. What I can tell you is in my district, this would give us an unfair tax burden with the valuations that have come in. I've looked around my district and also in District 3, Commissioner Smith's, and in a lot of houses or homes, they would get a 10 to 15% hike at the certified rate of 257. On top of that, if we were to add another 19.2%, I think that's an unfair tax burden to those in my district, and it's an unfair tax burden to the area of Sango as well as the area of Southside in District 4 as well. So I'd ask you to vote against the 307. Let's try to work out a better tax rate that we can come up with. Thank you.
Commissioner Knight?
Thank you, Mayor. Let me first start by saying I understand the need to fund education, fund our police force, and fund our first responders. However, we also have to consider our constituents. And I spend time within my district canvassing, trying to get as much information in regards to this as possible, and the majority of my constituents are actually against this. So I want you guys you commissioners to consider this. Consider your constituents, and how do you think, they would want you to vote, and vote that way. Thank you.
Commissioner Beal?
Thank you. I'm going to echo the 2 previous speakers in saying that the majority of my constituents are overwhelmingly against the 307. I went through and actually looked at some assessments of roughly 400 homes just in my district, and I can tell you that at 307, you're looking at an average of 45% increase. So I just cannot do 307. I'm sorry. Thank you.
Commissioner Pritchard?
Yes, I live in the center of the city, and I live in an old neighborhood, and the assessment on my house went from 83 to 98.6. I'm on commission sales, and I collect Social Security. So I'm not wealthy, but I'm willing to pay that tax increase because I want to see my first responders get more money. I want to see Montgomery County able to pay its bills. I want to pay for the quality of life that I have here in Montgomery County. So I'm willing to bite the bullet a little bit and take the 307, not have to come back to everybody next year hat in hand asking for more money. If we do that, if we lower the rate, that's exactly what we're going to do. We're going to be asking every 6 months, every year for more money. I think if we can pay our bills and bite the bullet, we can do this. In 1999, we were paying 3.30. I don't remember, and I was here in 99, and we had the tornado, and I didn't hear as many complaints as I hear now. I just hope that people are willing to step up to the plate. We enjoy a good quality of life in Montgomery County. Thank you.
Commissioner Joe Smith.
District 3 is a rare area that assesses at a really high value. Land, residences, et cetera, farms even, assess at a really high value. 95% of the people who called me or emailed me or messaged me about this tax rate asked me to vote no for this. They were okay with keeping our pay scale in there and giving our employees increases. They were okay with public safety complex. What they didn't see was okay was not drawing debt service on a lot of the other capital projects in order to allow those things to pay for themselves over time and allow the growth to help pay for those. So what I would like to ask is my fellow commissioners to let's find a medium area here that we don't put all the tax burden on our citizens in one year. Let's find a common ground and fund our public safety the way they should be in our other departments such as veterans and county clerks. And let's fund a complex that would allow our sheriff's department to be able to train properly. But we can pull debt to pay for the other projects as needed. And that's something that we need to look at because that'll be able to be paid for over time. I understand, and I completely understand the mayor's point of trying to save interest over time. I get that. But county government is a big entity, and that's a lot of money to put on the taxpayers. Thank you.
All right, anybody else? We're now voting on 1974 as amended. If you would, please register your vote. Would anyone like to change their vote? Ms. Cottrell, would you please tally the vote?
With 7 yeses, 12 noes, and 0 abstentions.
Thank you, ma'am. Does anybody have a recommendation on a tax rate? Commissioner Gannon.
I was talking with Jeff Taylor earlier, and I believe I've mentioned it before too. What would the tax rate, if we put capital projects on debt service, had a bond issue, and then went with the tax rate with what we have? I think we'd come ballpark 285 and then put all our capital projects that we can, I know we can't put some of them on there, onto the bond issue. So I'm kind of reiterating what Commissioner Smith was saying there and trying to come up with a rate in there.
If you take off the fire service, which we cannot use bond proceeds for, and I would also recommend for the ambulance fleet replacement and the defibrillators as well, I wouldn't recommend putting those on there just because of their life. Wouldn't make sense to finance that. I mean, I would still recommend at least, my recommendation still would be probably about a tax rate of 3, but you would have to borrow about 3 or 3.5 million at that point. It's just what we're going to have to work out and figure out what we're willing to borrow.
Well, I think what Mr. Gannon's asking is what would the tax rate be if you funded all the capital that we can. If you borrowed it, and basically you've got 7 million that you've got to add, if my math's correct, or 7.2 million you've got to add for reoccurring expenses, which are the pay plan and the new employees, which is about 15 cents maybe. I wrote it down. Yeah, it's 15.28 pennies. That's reoccurring. And so I don't know if there's anything else in there that you're not wanting to borrow, and this is not a motion, it's just discussion.
Right.
But if you 307, minus 15.28, that'd get you at about, I want to do that again, that didn't look right. It'd get you about 291,
Thereabouts.
and I don't know what you got to do with your debt service and your interest there.
I would say at least, and bare minimum, and I'd want to make Shannon to confirm, but I would say at least 6 to 7 pennies back in there to cover that debt service during that time frame.
Well, if you did the minimum, that'd be 297.72, if my math's right. I certainly want somebody to check it. I know. I'm coming. Just a second. I'm going to let him try to answer Commissioner Gannon's question.
If I'm guesstimating right, I'd say at 2.8, you could, 2.8, make sure if I'm math this right.
I'm sorry, mine is 307 plus the 15.28 is only
275. or
275. Be 272.28 plus debt service.
So 280.
Huh?
280.
Right.
280 would be a good round number.
280?
And I would recommend if we did that.
Commissioner Knight? 280 is what he said, is what he'd recommend. Commissioner Knight?
I was just going to ask, or make the statement that July 1st, I asked, why didn't we have because we were either 257 or 3.07 versus, an alternate course of action. What's the feasibility of a 2.75 being able to fund the items on the capital projects budget? Now, I'm not proposing any type of tax increases. I'm looking for an alternate course of action to be able to fund all these things that we need to do, but at the same time, bringing down the tax rate from a 3.07 to something that's even slightly feasible for everybody's constituents.
280 would fund it, and you're borrowing 17 million, Jeff, roughly?
Probably pretty close, yes, sir.
Roughly 17 million. That would fund everything that you've seen in the budget, everything that's been amended into the budget. It's going to take a tax rate of about 280 to fund it. 272 would be to fund 100% of the pay plan and the new employees. And so that takes it to 272, and then you have to, if you're going to borrow 17 million, you have to fund the debt service for 17 million. And so as Mr. Taylor has calculated, he calculates that to be a 280 tax rate. Commissioner Beal.
If we end up issuing debt for capital projects, we will have to approve that at that time when that request comes up. Is that correct?
Well, subsequently, probably the next month, we'd have to do a bond resolution.
You have a bond, yeah.
Okay. Gotcha. Thank you.
Commissioner Joe Smith.
You're saying to fund the 17 million, you're going to go down to 280 something? 280. Okay. I just did the math, the 17,800,000.
But you're not going to fund you're not going to borrow the money for all 17,800,000. Plus you just added 865 to the capital projects as well.
Okay, forgot about the 865.
So it's about 2.5, I'm guesstimating just looking at our projects, if we kept about 10 pennies in there for capital projects, like I said, fire service, ambulance, and some of these other smaller projects, like support vehicle replacement.
That you don't want to fund with debt.
Exactly right.
And that would still cover all the defibrillators, everything for EMS?
Because I'm using tax rate funding to pay for that. I
Okay.
still wouldn't want to use bond proceeds to pay for any of that. I think it's
Understand.
wasteful.
Okay, that's what I need to know. Thank you.
Commissioner
Thank
Woodruff?
you, thank you, Mayor. I'm satisfied with, if everything is covered, everything is paid for, I'm satisfied with the 280. Can I make a motion to accept that now, or we got more debate?
Sure.
Well, I make a motion that we accept the 280 as a
You said
certified tax rate.
You're going to make a motion to set a tax rate of 280.
Correct.
Is there a second? Unfortunately, your motion, Commissioner Smith seconded. Any discussion on the motion? It'd be 1974 amended, I would assume, to levy a tax rate of $2.80. Commissioner Raznick, I'm coming to you.
If we drop it down to 280, how fast will it
His
go?
mic, I can't hear you.
If we go to 280, how fast would this go right back up? In 2 years, or next year, will we have to do a tax hike to pay for everything?
Depends on what we have in capital projects. I mean, your debt is not going to go, that's the issue. Your debt's
Yeah.
not going to go down nearly as fast, because you've got to keep in mind too, we're also going to have middle school that's going to be borrowed for within the next year. Probably within a couple of years of that, you're going to have a high school that's going to be added to debt service as well.
So we
I
go to
mean, I don't
280,
know.
sorry.
And just looking at projects that were pushed off for this year, I think originally I had a little over 25 million projected for next year in capital projects. If you add Barksdale and Stokes Field to that, remove the design we had and add the construction, which it's not a guarantee that we do that, but you're adding probably about $12 million to the debt. So about $37 million just in the county capital projects we have for next year. And then it'd be close to 30 million the next year from what I was showing and looking at in the 5-year capital improvements plan.
So we'll just go more in debt, borrowing more money? Just wanna make
Potentially,
sure.
yes, sir. Depends on what we do with the projects, what we approve and what we remove.
Yeah, it's money.
Commissioner Leverett?
I'm sorry, that was my same thing. I'm guessing that we're okay with just borrowing more money and being in debt as opposed to just paying a higher property tax. But I'm not understanding the rationale. Most people talk about what their constituents want. So are you telling me that your constituents want you to continue to put the county in debt? I'm just not, I don't understand. But okay. I'm just concerned about why we would want to go further into debt. That's all.
Commissioner Beal?
Let's only spend what we need to spend and cut some fat out, and we won't have to issue so much debt.
What's your proposal? Commissioner Bryant?
On the 17 million that we're talking about going to debt service, what would the interest on that be, and is that for a 20-year bond?
Probably 15 or 20. We'd talk to our financial advisor and figure that out.
Do you know what the interest would be? You don't have any idea?
It's a little over 3%, I believe, right now, roughly, true interest cost.
Is that a
County-
variable rate?
No, ma'am.
Okay.
It'd be roughly 3 million
At least 3.
for the
yes,
life
sir.
of it?
At least 3. At least 3 million in interest, at least, yes.
Commissioner Knight, you've already, yeah, I'll come back to you, Commissioner Knight.
I'll
This
let
is
him-
just
I'll let him go
discussion.
ahead.
Go
That's
ahead,
fine.
Commissioner Knight, sorry.
What's the feasibility of limiting the amount of items that's on the capital budgets project fund? I mean, I admire, the school system's capital projects budget based off of how they had about 8 million, and I'm just approximating, worth of items on their budget. But they were able to cut down and cut the fat and say, hey, you know what? here's the amount that we bottom line absolutely need. I don't see that with ours. What can we really take a look at? Because I took a look at some of those items. We have a couple of re-roofing, one re-roofing item for $700,000, another re-roofing item for $200,000, another one for $300,000. Then we have land. I made that statement or question. I asked, I said, what could happen? I mean, what would happen if we had the school system sell that plot of land, the Kirkwood complex? Let's say, for instance, they get back only $1 million. With all those items put together, you have a pretty much about $3 million that you can pull off of that capital projects budget. So what items can we take a look at and say, well, hey, we don't need this. This is nice to have, but not a requirement.
Well, with all due respect, we voted on the appropriations, and this body voted that list. And the only change that was made to it was to add back the design for Stokes Field and Barksdale Field to the tune of $875,000. Now we're voting on a tax rate to fund that. That could be funded and don't borrow any money and leave it at 307, or as the discussion's been going, to set a tax rate somewhere that would actually be able to fund our reoccurring expenses, but borrow the money, as Mr. Taylor has talked about, for the capital projects, with the exception of some of the items that you would not want to finance over 20 years. And I think he mentioned the defibrillators, the ambulances.
Anything fire service related.
And anything fire service related. Commissioner Riccone.
This meeting is a perfect microcosm of what we're doing. We started off and we talk about needing to protect our parks, putting a park in areas that are underserved or underutilized, fixing parks and things that we need. And in doing that, we kept the budget and we actually added $875,000. And then we look at all the county employees that we have here. I mean, everybody's here. And we're treating the pay plan sacred, and I agree it's sacred. So as we're sitting here, we're easily to say, I want the tax rate at the certified rate. I want no new taxes. I'm against taxes. I'm against taxes. Well, we just increased easily $875,000, and as Jeff Taylor just said, why are we going to fund the design if we're not going to turn around and build these parks and fix these parks? So we can't sit here as a body and start talking about the money and where it's going to go and then not fund it. We have an obligation to fund our county. We have an obligation to provide for our county, to provide for our employees, and to provide for our citizens. And I do not think, and we've been doing this for a while, even the people who have been here for a year or so, I do not think we're frivolous with our funds. I think we do a good job with our money and we manage our money well, and we need to pay our people better. There's no question about that. I don't think the 280 is right. It would seem to be too low. I'm not a proponent of borrowing our way out of debt or borrowing our way to providing better services, because we are writing a check that our children will have to pay, and their taxes are only going to go up later. This money's going to come due. If 307 didn't pass, that one's gone. Jeff, I think you talked about $3 being your minimum. That would make it still float. I would be in support of $3. We might have to have some more studies, but if we're going to sit here and say no new taxes, and I'm glad we're doing this today, then we need to be able to look at these gentlemen and tell them they don't get a raise. We need to tell the sheriff's department, you don't need any more deputies. Keep working overtime and lose your people. We need to tell EMS no more ambulances, and if you call and you need an ambulance, one's not going to come because we didn't replace our fleet. So we want protection. We want to provide for our EMS and for our emergency service providers. This is how you do it. You have to generate property taxes.
Commissioner Pritchard.
I agree with Commissioner Riccone. I make an amendment, I make a motion that we take it to $3. if that will pay. We want to make sure that our first responders can get money. We're bleeding first responders. We want to make sure that we can support all their needs because we call them first when we need something. We don't call the street department, we don't call the waste management, but we do call first responders when we need something. They need to be paid. They need a little extra. We're bleeding money out to other counties. We need to support what we have. I'm willing to go to 3, but I won't go any lower, so I make an amendment that we accept 3.
I think, thank you, Commissioner Pritchard, and Mr. Harvey has corrected me. 1974, there'll have to be a motion to reconsider, and it'll have to come from the opposing side. And Commissioner Pritchard, I think you voted for it, so you can't make that
did.
motion. Correct me if I'm wrong, Mr. Harvey?
Someone on the prevailing side, which was no.
Yeah.
Someone who voted no, motion and a second to reconsider. That gets you properly before the
Okay.
body.
Commissioner Harper?
Call for the question. We had a 280.
There
And it
has
was
not
first
been a
and
motion
second.
made.
Commissioner McCutcheon made the motion.
Who?
I'm sorry.
His motion failed for lack of second.
He had a second from Commissioner Smith.
Excuse me, sir. I
Oh, he
think we-
did?
Yes.
Oh, excuse me.
But it was a motion, there was.
Set the tax rate at
There
280.
was, hang with me just one second. There was a motion number
7-4.
1974 to
tax
set a tax rate. There was a vote. The vote was no, it failed. There is no motion on the floor to amend.
It has to be a motion to reconsider.
To set a tax rate.
Hang that on me.
There's no motion to amend, it failed. So there has to be a motion to reconsider, just like we did a few minutes ago. A motion to reconsider by one of the parties who prevailed. So someone who voted no makes a motion.
I'll make a motion to reconsider.
And just for clarity, you voted no.
Is there a second?
Second.
Second.
All right,
Commissioner Joe Smith.
so we vote to.
We're now voting on a motion to reconsider Resolution 1974. Any questions on 1974 reconsider? Commissioner Woodruff.
Thank you, Mayor. I thought that we voted to accept 280 as a tax rate.
No, sir, it did.
And it was second.
I will take the blame for that because it has to be a motion to reconsider. It's not an amendment. It would be a motion to reconsider 1974 because it failed, to get it back on the floor, and then somebody can make a new motion.
Excuse me,
Okay.
Mayor. I believe that Mr. Woodruff and Mr. Smith did a motion to amend to 280 tax rate, but maybe they need to withdraw that motion so that they can do the new
That's
motion.
correct.
Yeah.
Yeah, it has to be a motion to reconsider.
There's a motion to reconsider, seconded, the chair's called it for a
Any
vote.
discussion to reconsider 1974? If you would, please register your vote. Would anyone like to change their vote? Ms. Cottrell, would you please tally the vote?
We have 19 yeses, 0 nos, and 0 abstentions.
Thank you, ma'am. All right, we're now voting again on 1974. It's still at 307. If somebody would like to amend it, now's the time to amend it. Commissioner Woodruff.
I don't believe we're going to walk away tonight with a 307, 3.07. I don't think we're going to walk away with 2.57. Somewhere in the middle, and I'm considering, as it's been discussed, 280 would be the medium for me. I can live with that if we're going to fund everything we need. I make a motion that we have the 280 as a tax rate.
Is there a second? Commissioner Joe Smith. Discussion, Commissioner Beal.
I have a question. So I need to kind of go back on what I said a little bit earlier. I am all for the new employee request and the entire pay raises. I want to make that very clear. So will 280 allow us to fund all of that? Or can we go any lower than that? How low can we go?
I wouldn't go lower than,
I
I would not go
think
lower.
the
I
question
wouldn't-
you're asking, if you're not considering any capital outlay or any capital projects, then the tax rate could be 2.722, and that funds all the pay plan and all the new employees, which are reoccurring expenses. That will grow as step raises come into effect and those types of things come into effect. So it will fund it this coming fiscal year, but that's probably the only year that it'll fund it.
Another thing you've got to keep in mind, if you,
And this is discussion
can't
on
cut
this
anything out.
motion. Commissioner Rasnick.
If we go to 280, in a year, we'll be right back here voting it back up. I think we just need to stay at 307, pay our EMS, our sheriff's department, fund our projects, our parks, and not have more debt. Let's pay our debt off.
Thank you. Commissioner Knight?
I was going back to my original statement of, is it feasible for the 2.75? But you made that clear with the 2.72.
Jeff, did you have something you wanted to say?
yes, sir. And one thing y'all need to keep in mind too, if you look at our budget projections, and we always end up a little bit high, in past, we've always our fund balances end up higher than what is initially projected. Right now, we're projected, I think, somewhere between 32 and 33 million to end this fiscal year. But if you look at our expenditures, our fund balance will be drawn down to, if my memory serves me correct, about 27.6, 27.7 million at the end of fiscal year 20. So is a drawdown of the fund balance. So at some point, we're going to have to look at funding that pay plan and all those expenditures, because the capital outlay, I've been here, this is my 5th or 6th budget year, it's coming every year. The new employee requests, they're coming every year, and they're not slowing down. It's around 30 to 40 every year. These expenditures are going to keep coming and keep growing. So at 280, I'm almost rest assured you're going to be looking at a tax increase within a year or two, my personal opinion. I think it's one of those things we have to look at. I mean, the capital projects, I told more than a few of you, my personal opinion was if you had a problem with 307, I didn't have an issue with that, but we needed to look at the capital projects or look at things in the budget to cut. Our operating budget with county general, there's not much left to cut. I mean, the budget committee, I'll give them credit, they've done a great job with that over the past 4 or 5 years, cutting everything out. The only thing you have is new employee requests, capital projects, and capital outlay. And if we put it at 280, I'd almost rest assured you're going to have to come back and ask for a tax increase the next year. That's my personal opinion.
Commissioner
Unless you
Bryant,
cut.
on the amendment, on the amendment to 1974, go ahead.
I have a question, since if we keep it at 280, what is our current bond rating?
AA plus.
And if we spend the fund balance next year by keeping this at 280, how's it going to affect our bond rating?
I can't say it would have a negative effect, but there is that potential, yes.
Would it make our interest rate higher by borrowing next year as well?
If our credit rating dropped, yes, ma'am.
Thank you.
All right, we have a amendment to 1974 from 307 to 280. Any other questions? If you would, please register your vote. Would anyone like to change their vote? Ms. Cottrell, would you please tally the vote?
We have 3 yeses, 16 noes, and 0 abstentions.
All right, motion failed. We're back to 1974 at 307. We have a motion for approval, discussion, commission. Any discussion? If you would, please register your vote. Ms. Cottrell, would you please tally the vote?
With 8 yeses, 11 noes, and 0 abstentions.
Thank you, ma'am. Is there a motion to reconsider, Commissioner Riccone? Or do you have something you'd like to add?
I'd yield to Commissioner Harper. He'd like to go first, Mayor.
Commissioner Harper?
Thank you, Mayor. I'd like to make a motion to defer the tax rate resolution to our next month's agenda.
There's currently no motion pending.
Okay. Then I'll make a motion to reconsider.
There's a motion to reconsider 1974. Is there a second? Commissioner Beal? Any discussion? I have a question, Jeff. Do we have any criteria that we have to meet for the state?
We have to have our budget passed by, I believe it's August 31st.
Okay.
That includes the tax rate.
So we have Commissioner Riccone on the so we're voting on the motion to reconsider. You would please, Commissioner Johnson.
Just a question here. That would necessitate a change in the implementation of the pay plan, true?
Correct.
Thank you.
It would probably, I don't know when we meet. If I look at a calendar, our formal meeting will be August the 12th. I doubt it would probably be the end of August, I would think, before we could make it effective. I don't think from the 12th till, Mr. Swa, are you here? I saw you earlier. Well, I don't think you could get all the changes in effective from the 12th to whenever your payroll cuts off, could you? I didn't hear a word you said. I don't hear real good either. Oh, you're checking to see when they start and end?
The next two pay periods would start on the 12th of August and the 26th of August.
So it'd have to be in by the 26th of August. Would that give you enough time? Well, the 12th to the 26th would give you 2 weeks. Sir? Okay. So we have a motion and a second to reconsider. Any other discussion? If you would, please register your vote. Commissioner Riccone, do you, okay, I see. Ms. Cottrell, would you please tally the vote?
We have 18 yeses, 1 no, and 0 abstentions.
Thank you, ma'am. Commissioner Riccone.
I'd like to make an amendment to set the tax rate at $3 even.
We have a motion to set the tax rate at $3. Is there a second, Commissioner Bryant? Any discussion, Commissioner Harper?
No.
Any discussion on
Mayor.
setting the tax rate at $3?
Mayor. Now, with that, I'm going to make the assumption that we're wanting to cut that from the capital projects fund, leave the county general alone, and with, of course, with the previous amendment of the 1.86 pennies going to capital projects, correct? Okay.
Commissioner Leverett.
With us going to 3 even, that still means we would have to borrow some money for some capital projects, wouldn't it?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, thank you.
I think we would try to minimize that to the greatest extent possible, but I don't know exactly what that'd be right now.
Ballpark around $3.5 million, if I'm not mistaken.
Ballpark, according to Mr. Taylor, what he said was about $3.5 million. That's what we'd have to borrow. Any other discussion on Resolution 1974 as amended to $3?
It's the motion to amend.
The motion to amend, I said as amended. So if you would, please register your vote.
Instead of voting on the main body again, you might tell them
Ms. Cottrell, does anybody want to change their vote? Ms. Cottrell, would you please tally the vote?
You have 6 yeses, 13 noes, and 0 abstentions.
Thank you, ma'am. What were you suggesting?
What I'm suggesting is, instead of now voting on the main motion and it fails at 307 again, I mean, you're the
Okay.
chair.
Does anybody, Commissioner Harper?
Do I have to make another motion to reconsider before I can make a
I
motion to
think
defer?
what Mr. Harvey's saying, instead of voting on it and voting it down, you can make another amendment. So 1974 is on the floor.
I'd like to make a motion to defer to our next month's meeting.
Is there a second? Commissioner Butts, any discussion? Commissioner Riccone?
I just want it to be said, want it out there, because we'll probably will defer this. If we do defer it, go home and study your books and look at your numbers. And remember, we're playing chicken with these people. We're playing chickens with our employees. We're playing chicken with our constituents. We have to get a rate. We have to figure out what we're gonna fund and what we're not gonna fund, because if we're coming in, apparently we're below $3. I mean, that was why I did the motion. Let's see where we are. We're somewhere between $2.80 and $3. But if you're coming in and supporting whatever, $2.90, have a list to say what you want gone and be able to look at that person or that project or those employees and tell them you're the reason they're gone and that they've been cut from our budget.
Thank you. Commissioner Rasnick?
I just believe we need to get this done tonight.
Thank
That's
you. Commissioner Johnson?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Just as a point of order, I believe we're going to need a date certain on this.
August
amendment.
12th.
And secondly, I've been trying my best to be quiet, but if this is deferred, I would try to go hand in hand with what Commissioner Riccone said. With all due respect to the commissioners in the room, and please trust and believe me when I say that, with all due respect to the commissioners in the room, if this is deferred and we come back on this in a couple of weeks, none of us are on the campaign trail. So please dispense with the stump speeches, and when you push the button on your microphone, please have an idea, a proposal, a plan, a question, an idea, something, because I think that we have over 200,000 people that are depending on us, and we owe them better. Thank you.
Thank you. Commissioner Leverett?
Yes, I just want to appeal again to the commissioners. We have had 2 budget roundtables. We have had plenty of time. The budget hearings have been going on since April. We had plenty of time to read, study, do our homework, ask questions, email department heads, go out and drive to locations. We had time to do our homework, folks. We had time. And so now we're here at the table as if, I know I'm new, I haven't even been in this seat a year, but we're sitting here as if we didn't have the time to do the research. We are representatives of a certain number, anywhere between 4,000 and 10,000 people in Montgomery County. They trust us to represent them, and we need to do the right thing. It was a sad state of affairs when we had a commissioners meeting for the school system, and 2 commissioners and the chief of staff showed up to look at all the capital projects that the school system had. We've had time to do our homework. I got my flat shoes. If we need to sit here all night, then let's sit here all night, but let's get this done. And let's take care of these people. Because next year, if we're going to be right back here asking for money. Let's take care of our debt. Let's take care of our playpen. Take care of our EMS workers. And let's stop worrying about what my reputation is going to be. How am I going to get reelected? Let's take care of the people. And I think we need to do it now. Stop borrowing money. Set this tax rate. Get it done, because we had plenty of time to do our homework. And shame on us if we didn't do it. That's all I have.
Commissioner Knight?
I agree. We do have to take care of everyone. We have to take care of our first responders. We have to take care of our police force. We have to take care of our EMS workers. We have to take care of our county employees, but we also have to take care of our constituents. We have a lot to consider, not just, you know, the individuals to the left and to the right of us. We have the entire Montgomery County to consider. Yes, we've had time, but deferring this will give us ample opportunity to ensure that we vote correctly to how the constituents' needs are met. That's all.
Commissioner Joe Smith?
I think Commissioner Leverett hit the nail on the head. We owe it to the people here. And we shouldn't leave this room till we're done. It's still daylight outside right now. And I know I've spent countless hours up till midnight, 2 o'clock in the morning, reading this budget, going over line by line, figuring out what's going on. If I had a question, I would email a department head or talk to somebody in the mayor's office and find an answer. Every single one of us has had an opportunity to review this budget since the end of June. And you had ample opportunity to go to the budget committee meetings from April and May. It's time that we vote on this and we do our due diligence and make sure that we represent the people of our districts and Montgomery County.
Commissioner Beal?
Being in favor to defer this does not mean that you didn't do your homework. I can tell you that I have looked at every single line item on this budget, and I personally take it offensive when you say that I didn't do my homework. I have more questions now than I did before. So I'm going to ask you to vote in favor of the deferral. Thank you.
Any other? I just want to make a brief comment that I don't know how many of you have reached out to department heads and asked for questions. A lot of them have been at the last hour. And I think the department heads have responded tremendously. I know that today, and I'm not talking about myself, but today the majority of my day was answering questions about the budget. And as I said, you don't have to call me and ask me. You can call Jeff Taylor, but I know Jeff had a lot of questions today, and I know other elected officials had a lot of questions today, and department heads had a lot of questions today. So I just want to compliment the staff and the elected officials for being on the spot to answer all of these questions, whether it was last week, whether it was today, they've answered them. And so I just want to commend them. So we have a motion and a second to defer 1974 to our next regular scheduled meeting, which is August the 12th. And I might add, I know what Commissioner Riccone said, and I respect that. If you come back with some cuts, the first thing we're going to have to do is go to 1975 and reconsider it. Because we voted on the appropriations, and now we're voting on the tax rate. So we have a motion and a second. If you would, please register your vote. Does anyone want to change their vote? Ms. Cottrell, would you please tally the vote?
We have 5 yeses, 14 noes, 0 abstentions.
All right. We're back to Resolution 1974 at 3:07. Any discussion? If you would, please register your vote. Would anyone like to change their vote? Ms. Cottrell, if you would, please tally the vote.
We have 7 yeses, 12 noes, and 0 abstentions.
Thank you, ma'am. So we still have Resolution 1974 in front of us, I guess.
I think they just voted on it.
So they voted no? Okay.
So we'd have to have a motion to reconsider, bring it back up, or by someone on the prevailing side.
Commissioner Harper?
I'd like to make a motion on 19.7, our appropriations.
In the past, there'll be another motion to reconsider by someone on the prevailing side. Pardon me? Has to be, yes, that's right, on the prevailing side.
Consider 18-7-5, 19-7-5.
Is there a second?
Too many numbers. Want to second it? Somebody second it.
Commissioner Knight, any discussion to reconsider 1975? If you would, please register your vote. Would anyone like to change their vote? Ms. Cottrell, would you please tally the vote?
We have 15 yeses, 4 noes, 0 abstentions.
Commissioner Harper?
Thank you, Mayor. I'd like to make a cut to the budget resolution, and that would be from account 58500. That would be, I'd like to eliminate the 130,000 for United Way.
Is there a second? Commissioner Joe Smith, any discussion? If you would, please register your vote. Would anyone like to change their vote? Ms. Cottrell, would you please tally the vote?
We have 11 yeses, 8 noes, 0 abstentions.
All right. I guess Commissioner Beal. If you'll let
no, they
him
cut
work
me off.
it.
Okay, thank you. I would like to make a motion that we cut from the Parks Department, Eastland Park for $1.785 million.
Be out of the Capital Projects Fund 171. We have a motion to cut out of 171, Eastland Park, $1,795,000. Is there a second? Commissioner Knight, any discussion? If you would, please register your vote. Would anyone like to change their vote? Ms. Cottrell, would you please tally the vote?
We have 6 yeses, 13 noes, and 0 abstentions.
Thank you, ma'am. Motion fails. We're now back on 1975 as amended, removing 130,000 from United Way. Any discussion or any additional amendments? Commissioner Beal?
Thank you. I would like to make a motion that we cut $2.305 million from the school system capital projects.
Is there a second? Commissioner Johnson, any discussion? Commissioner Pritchard?
Yes, I disagree with cutting anything out of the school budget. Our schools are the ones that are standing. We have cafeterias that need new equipment, roofs that need re-roofing. Our schools need maintenance, and every time we let the maintenance go, the next year it's going to cost twice as much as what it's costing us now. 2.3 million is a drop in the bucket for what the school system actually needs. Originally, they were asking for 5. So I think we need to give them that 2.3 and at least let some of the work get done. Those are our kids, and I'm not going to cut from our kids.
Commissioner Johnson?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Well, I recognize and I appreciate the sentiment, but you're really not cutting from the kids. This kind of echoes a motion that I made in the Budget Committee meeting, and it didn't take, mainly because the school system, through an error, was not invited to the meeting. So we had to go back and do it again, and unfortunately, I couldn't make it to the next meeting. Where at least my original motion came from, I can't speak for Commissioner Beal, but where my original motion came from was the idea that we as a county have a responsibility to continue funding employees when they are hired. When positions are created, they're forever. We keep them. They do not go away. So what happened in this past year was there was some unexpected sales tax revenue which landed in the school system's lap, basically, to the tune of 5.7 million, I believe, somewhere in the neighborhood. And with that unexpected revenue going into the school system's budget, my idea was, why would they not pay for their capital projects with that? It was unplanned revenue. It was money that no one knew was coming. So, surprise, free money. So when I proposed that, it came back that the money had been spent. And when I asked how much was left, they said, oh, about 500,000. So I said, where's the rest of the money? And I was told that they hired new people with the money. And now they needed money for HVAC problems and water problems and concrete problems and sidewalk problems. And my comment was, so instead of handling these issues that are so important and so devastating and so necessary right now, you chose not to do that, but to take the money and hire more people so that the county would now have to fund these people in perpetuity. And then you have this body looking as if we don't want to help the children. So, as I said, I appreciate the sentiment that Commissioner Pritchett has, but those are the facts. Thank you.
Commissioner Johnson, with all due respect, I have to remind you that their maintenance of effort did not go up. And so if they would have hired new people, they're going to be dependent upon that sales tax revenue to be there from now on, because new people are a reoccurring expense. That's exactly what I'm saying. So we have no obligation other than to fund what our maintenance of effort is on an ongoing basis. And that maintenance of effort has been the same for the last 3 years. Somebody that's been on the budget committee, correct me, with the exception of, no, and I believe even last year when we agreed to give them the growth, we came back and took that growth away and hired 5 SROs with it. So their maintenance of effort has been flat the last 3 years. They may be paying for it through BEP funding or something like that, or sales tax, but our funding has been flat.
So realistically speaking, you believe that there will not be a request to fund these positions next year?
I don't know that. I don't know what they're going to ask for next year. But I know we have we being this commission, not really me, y'all, I don't get to vote unless there's a tie. But this commission has the opportunity to fund the exact same level of funding that we did last year, or we can let that grow. We can't decrease it, but we can let it grow. Commissioner Leverett.
Yes, Mayor. I just want to remind all the commissioners that inside of your email is a copy of the capital projects review that we got from the school system with detailed pictures and photographs showing all of the dilapidated areas that is happening in the school system. For example, the roof in Barksdale, the molded piping in Hazelwood and Kenwood and Woodlawn, and that we have grease trap problems at Richview. In Northeast, we got mold and things. We got a whole lot of things going on. And we were invited to tour the schools to see firsthand the capital projects. And then, again, like I said before, myself and another commissioner and the chief of staff were the only commissioners there. But if you look at this, we have outdated security systems in our school. We have air quality issues where there's mold all over the place. We have electrical problems. Just go back in your email and look at the outdated HVAC systems. So before we want to cut the school, we probably need to dig into the weeds and ask for it. I think that the school system has been gracious by accepting the 2.3 because they did ask for 5. And so at this time, we don't need to be cutting the school system. And Mr. Garland, I just respect, again, out of respect, is there anything from the sheriff's department that you're willing to cut?
Commissioner Beal?
Wow. I would like to say with all due respect, I have a son that's in the school system. So saying that I'm not for the kids, that you can't be farther from the truth on that. My question is, they have a parcel of land out off of Highway 79. Guess what it's assessed at? $2.3 million. So if it was that big of a deal, why don't we sell that land and use that money towards these repairs? Thank you.
I may speak to the question about selling the land. I reached out to Mr. House because Commissioner Knight brought that up, and I think Commissioner House made a very good point in the fact that he'd like to take that back to the Land Hoc Advisory Committee. With the growth that's going on out in that area, he's not saying that there's going to be a school there anytime within the next year or two. I'm not speaking for you, Mr. House, but potentially that site could still be used for a school, and they'd like to look at what the options are available. And that's just as a point of information. Commissioner Johnson.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Just in doing our homework, if there was a look at the minutes of the Budget Committee meetings, you will find that a sizable chunk of the Sheriff's Office capital projects was cut. It was put back in at a later date, and just as a point of clarification, I didn't put it back in. That was something that our Accounts and Budgets Department found that they were able to do once the mayor had the proposal of the tax rate being at 307. Now, in speaking with the tour of the school and looking at the conditions, well, I can tell you this. If I let my house fall into disrepair, if my front door is falling off and my windows are broken and my floor is rotting out, and you see me buy a brand new car, I want to know how much money you're going to give me to fix my house back up. Thank you.
Commissioner Knight.
Say thank you, Mayor, for doing that bit of research and talking to Director House in reference to that item that I had proposed. That being said, I'd like to say for this particular case, I agree with Commissioner Leverett, and the fact that the school system was able to reduce their capital projects budget from about $8 million to, what was it, 2.5 or 2.3 million? I think that says a lot, and it says that they made the concerted effort to reduce the amount that they're requesting from the county, and we got to take a look at that into consideration. So,
anyone else? We're now voting on Commissioner Woodruff.
Thank you, Mayor. I agree with Commissioner Leverett and Pritchett. I don't think we need to cut any more from the schools system. Again, however, I see $5 million for the sheriff, $5,860,000 for the sheriff department, a gun range. I spent a lot of time in the military. I never had a gun range that cost that much, and I've shot in all kind of weather. So I don't know do we really need a facility for training for $5 million? I support them. I know they have a tough job, but can we pass that for another year?
With all due respect, this is on a motion to amend 1975, to cut $2,305,000 from the school system's capital projects. Any other discussion? If you would, please register your vote. Would anyone like to change their vote? Ms. Cottrell, would you please tally the vote?
3 yeses, 16 noes, and 0 abstentions.
Thank you, ma'am. You're getting a workout over there, aren't you? I hope you don't run out of ink. 1975 is back. Commissioner Beal.
I would like to offer an amendment to cut the $576,000 for land purchase near Veterans Plaza.
Is there a second? Commissioner Knight? Any discussion? Commissioner Knight?
I was just going to propose a cut as well, which is to remove.
No.
Yeah, that's fine. Yeah.
Commissioner Gannon?
The property over off behind Veterans Plaza is what we're discussing. We are totally full in Veterans Plaza, as we've looked at before. The land on the corner there, which is where a cut above is, has a office building there. It has a building in the back where a daycare used to be, and then it has a house over there on the other side. It has 3 great buildings we can use and move towards expanding our services and keep them close to Veterans Plaza. I think it would be a huge mistake to cut those from the budget, because basically you're getting 3 parcels of land, and it's on the corner, as well as in the future, I can eventually see us going down that whole strip as hopefully as land becomes available, because I don't think our services are going to decrease. So I think it would be a huge mistake to cut that piece of property out of the budget.
Thank you. Commissioner Woodruff?
I was going to make another motion as well.
Okay. Commissioner Knight?
I just wanted to know how long was that piece of property on the market? I'm just curious.
Really, to be honest, it was never really on the market, if you will. The owner had discussed for several years, I'd say, he cuts my hair. Okay, for several years, if we'd be interested in ever doing it, if he'd be interested in selling it and stuff like that. And then I mentioned it to the mayor and some others, and it's just kind of gradually progressed into where he said that he would do it. And we're getting pretty much the appraisal value. I think it's just a touch above the appraisal value. But this is one piece of property that we're not paying, and don't get me wrong, when they see us coming, they raise the price up. This is one piece of property that we're actually getting it for what it's worth, if you will.
Well, in all transparency, he cuts my hair as well. And I've heard a lot about it as well. And I reached out, and I'm not trying to put any of our folks on the spot, but I reached out to Nick Powell in engineering about it. And Nick, I know you're sitting over there, correct me if I'm wrong, but you thought it was a pretty good idea too, because I know Nick is very involved in the space down at Veterans Plaza. So in all transparency.
You got a little bit off track. There's not a second on that motion.
Yeah, it was too. Yeah, yeah, it was a motion and a second. Any other discussion? So the amendment to 1975 is to cut $576,000 for, I think it's land purchase near Veterans Plaza. If you would, please register your vote. Would anyone like to change their vote? Ms. Cottrell, would you please tally the vote?
2 yeses, 17 noes, and 0 abstentions.
Thank you, ma'am. Motion fails. Back on 1975. Commissioner Harper.
Thank you, Mayor. I'd like to make a motion to defer 19-7-4 and 19-7-5 to the August 12th meeting.
I think we're voting only on 1975. I don't think you can make a motion to defer both of them. If you'd like to make a motion.
I'll settle for 1975 then.
We have a motion to defer 1975. Is there a second? Commissioner Beal, any discussion? Commissioner Smith, you want to, or Commissioner Knight, either one of y'all want to discuss this?
I want to make a motion, so I'll wait till this motion either passes or fails before I make mine.
All right. the motion is to defer 1975 until August the 12th. Is there a second? I'm sorry, if you would, please register your vote. Would anyone like to change their vote? Ms. Cottrell, would you please tally the vote?
We have 4 yeses, 15 noes, and 0 abstentions.
Thank you, ma'am. We're back on 1975 as amended. And that was removing the 130,000. Commissioner Knight.
Again, I'm just trying to make another motion, but since we're voting on
No, you can make a
Oh,
motion
okay,
to
well,
amend 1975.
I'd like to propose one amendment, make a motion to propose an amendment to remove the historic courthouse re-roof for $375,000.
Is there a second? Commissioner Beal, any discussion? Commissioner Smith? Commissioner Gannon?
Can we go back over the roof condition of this? Nick, would you like to say anything on this? Because I know we had
It
lots of
leaks.
discussion.
You probably ought to come up so everybody can hear you, but it leaks. We had the building cleaned, pressure washed, and it leaked about every window we had, and the roof.
So this building has some issues that we know and some issues that we don't know. The slate on the roof, if you can go out on a normal day, a dry day, you can look at the slate and it's starting to deteriorate. We don't know why. That's premature to that product on its age. It shouldn't be doing it, but it is. I've had architects from across the street that are looking, sending me images saying, what are we going to do? Is this something that's going wrong? That's one thing. We have flat roofs that are starting to delaminate on this building. That's going to be a problem. We could have a windstorm and it could pick it and lift the roof off. We also have a problem with the sealant on the windows in the brick. Your commission chamber is leaking. Both sides of the building, the commission chamber is leaking. We've had storms come from both directions. These windows are leaking through. My brand new office that we renovated, we have 2 windows that's leaking. So the longer we delay something like this, the more damages you will pay in repairs.
Thanks, Nick.
Just my opinion.
Any other discussion on the amendment to cut Commissioner Knight?
My question to you, how long has those leaks been occurring or has happened before we actually decided to place it on an agenda?
I think it was cut last year. I'm not sure. Please turn his microphone on.
I believe we've at least brought it up for a year, and we've been evaluating that. We've had drone cameras up looking at the roof. It's difficult to get to, but we've been looking at it and evaluating it for a while, and this is money that's going to go to help us figure out what's wrong. It will help to replace parts of it, but until we figure out and get a full design for what's going to be done, this might not be all of it.
What's the feasibility of cutting that down and repairing certain parts and then saving the rest for later?
It's going to continue to leak.
I'm trying to.
It's going to continue to leak. I don't want to put Nick on the spot.
Yeah.
It's going to continue to leak.
I mean, you can pick and choose which you want to go after first. The window leaks are probably leaking worse than the roof right now. But as slate continues to fall off the roof, you're going to damage a coating that's in the gutters, which will continue to cause problems. The more it's delayed, the more it's going to be problematic.
Okay, thank you.
Any other discussion on the amendment to 1975 to remove $375,000 from the historic courthouse re-roofing and gutters. If you would, please register your vote. Would anyone like to change their vote? Ms. Cottrell, would you please tally the vote?
We have 2 yeses, 17 noes, and 0 abstentions.
Thank you, ma'am. Motion fails. We're back on 1975. Commissioner Smith.
I'd like to call for the question. Go ahead and move back to the certified tax rate.
Question's been called for. I see no other amendments. Any other discussion on 1975? That's to cease discussion. Is there a second to the motion to call for the question? Commissioner Gannon? It's a privilege motion? Yeah. Do y'all want to register your vote on this, or is it just simple as let's go forward? It's a point of order. The motion to cease discussion trumps everything. I hate to make Ms. Cottrell do it, but it looks like some people want to keep talking. So this is a motion to cease discussion on 1975. We have a motion and a second. It was Commissioner Gannon and Commissioner Joe Smith, and Commissioner Gannon seconded. Ms. Cottrell, we're now voting to cease discussion. If you would, please register your vote. Would anyone like to change their vote? Ms. Cottrell, would you please tally the vote?
We have 15 yeses, 4 noes, and 0 abstentions.
All right, 1975. Give her time to reload it, and if you would, please register your vote. And this is as amended, which is removing the $130,000 from United Way. Are you ready, Ms. Cottrell?
Yes,
Yeah, you ready?
yes, sir.
We're voting on 1975. If you would, please register your vote. Ms. Cottrell, would you please tally the vote?
We have 12 yeses, 7 noes, and 0 abstentions.
All right. Now we're back on 1974. $1974 is 307. Commissioner Smith?
The reason I asked to call for the question on the last resolution and bouting out of this one is because I think most of us can agree that the capital projects, et cetera, and pay plan, all of the things in this budget need to be in there. It's our job as elected officials and the voice of the people in this room is to find a way to come to an agreement on how much we're willing to service as debt. We've got to figure out what we want this tax rate to be. I think we can all agree it's not going to be 257 because I believe the majority of the people here are in favor of this pay plan and funding our employees to what they're valued at. We know that they're worth more than what they're getting right now. As far as the debt service on capital projects, find what's good in your heart. Let's find somewhere in the middle that we can meet and get a budget passed for the citizens of Montgomery County. I don't think we're going to get it 307 either. I think it's a great try to reduce and eliminate any interest in the future, but we cannot put that burden on the back of taxpayers all in 1 year. That's hurtful to people who are on fixed income and Social Security, et cetera, et cetera. Let's find somewhere in the middle and do our job as elected officials. That's all I ask.
Commissioner Rasnick?
Yeah, I'd like to do a motion for 2.97 tax rate.
Is there a second? Commissioner Riccone? Any discussion? If you would, we have a resolution to, amendment to 1974 to set the tax rate at 2.97. If you would, please register your vote. Would anyone like to change their vote? Ms. Cottrell, would you please tally the vote?
We have 7 yeses, 12 noes, 0 abstentions.
This is where I'd encourage them to think about whether they want to amend it or vote on it again. Because we have to keep going back over reconsider.
Yeah. Commissioners, I'm not real sure what y'all want to do. You don't want to defer, which I agree. I think it's your elected duty to set a tax rate. But we can sit here and vote all night, so it's back up again at 19.74 and the tax rate at 307. Commissioner Riccone.
Well, I feel like we're playing Price is Right, and we got the little thing going. Make a motion to set it at 2.95.
There's a motion for 295. Is there a second? Commissioner Keene, any discussion on the amendment to 1974? Commissioner Pritchard?
No,
It's discussion on the amendment.
no, sir.
Okay. Did you say 295? Any other discussion? We're now voting to amend Resolution 1974 to 2.95. If you would, please register your vote. Would anyone like to change their vote? Ms. Cottrell, would you please tally the vote?
We have 8 yeses, 11 noes, and 0 abstentions.
All right. Commissioner Pritchard.
Yes, sir. We're sitting here tonight picking apart the little small stuff because we're afraid to vote for the big stuff. Well, all the big stuff is sitting here in this room. And it's either we're going to vote for it and let it go, or we're just going to keep penny anteing and borrowing money. I'm against borrowing money to pay for things that we can pay for in cash. We're able this year to pay for most of the capital projects that we have on the table in cash. Next year, we're going to be in a different ballpark. This year, we need to take care of what we can take care of. And the way to take care of it is to keep the rate at 307, to vote for it, to be able to pay our people, to be able to fund all the things that Montgomery County needs. If we can pay for a park, we can pay salaries.
Commissioner Knight.
I'd like to make the motion to set the tax rate to 2.57.
Second, Commissioner Beal. Any discussion? I just might remind you, if you set it at this, you're going to be borrowing a lot of money, or somebody's going to have to make an amendment to 1975, because you've got $7.2 million worth of pay plan and new employees that 257 will not fund. If you would, please register your vote. Would anyone like to change their vote? Ms. Cottrell, would you please tally the vote?
We have 3 yeses, 16 noes, and 0 abstentions.
Motion fails. Now back to 1974, Commissioner Harper.
I'd like to make a motion to set the tax rate at 2.82.
Is there a second? Commissioner Smith, second. Any discussion? Commissioner Harper? If you would, please register your vote. Would anyone like to change their vote? Ms. Cottrell, would you please tally the vote?
We have 6 yeses, 13 noes, and 0 abstentions.
All right, motion fails. Back to Commissioner Joe Smith.
I'd like to make a motion to set the tax rate at 2.85.
Is there a second? Commissioner Woodruff, any discussion? If you would, please register your vote. Would anyone like to change their vote? Oh, sorry. Would anyone like to change their vote? Ms. Cottrell, would you please tally the vote?
We have 4 yeses, 15 noes, and 0 abstentions.
Motion fails. Well, we ought to just start at 258 and just start going up and vote on all of them, because we're about halfway there now. It ain't funny to me. Commissioner Knight.
I'd like to make a motion to defer to the next formal commission meeting.
Is there a second?
I'll do it again.
All right, we're voting on 1974. Any other amendments? If you would, please register your vote. Commissioner Harper, excuse me, hold it.
Thank you, Mayor. I have a quick question for Mr. Harvey. We did attempt to defer this resolution once. Are we able to defer it again, or attempt to defer it again?
In the deadlock you're in now, it's coming back to you time and time again. I think a motion to defer is a privileged motion. I mean, I can spend a little time up here right now and confirm that, but a motion to defer is a motion on the floor to handle your dealings and your work. It's not substantive, so I think that procedural motion can come back.
Thank you.
I would ask that we take a recess and you research that, Mr. Harvey, because I think we have a duty to pass a budget. That's why we called this meeting. So without objection, we'll be in recess for 7 minutes.
Can everyone be admonished to recall their obligation under the Sunshine Law, not to discuss anything that deals with county business during this period of time, which you might be tempted to do because you're normal, but you're under the duties of the obligations of the Sunshine Law. Tory and not hear that motion. At some point, without trying to gild the lily, if the chair decided we've been here for 5.5 hours and it can be heard again, then the chair could decide it's not dilatory, that it has changed in substance. So if it's just made over and over again right now on a repetitious basis, the chair can say he doesn't recognize it as it's dilatory, but at a certain point, it could be made and the chair could recognize it.
With all due respect, I don't recognize it, Mr. Harper. I had a conversation with Mr. Taylor, and I'd like Mr. Taylor, if you would, to tell the commissioners what you told me while we were sitting here.
Just looking at the numbers I was working on regarding the tax rate, at a 2.9 tax rate, if we were to allocate 1.08 pennies to county general, the 11 to highways, 63 to the school's general purpose fund, 0.84 to the debt service, 0.055 to school transportation, and 18.5 to capital projects. That would put our tax rate at 290, where we would pay about $8,713,500 in capital projects through tax rate dollars, and we would borrow probably somewhere between $10,250,000, $10,500,000 once you take into account costs. And that would be at 2.9 tax rate.
So we're 1974 and it's 307. Any amendments? Commissioner Johnson?
Move to set a tax rate for 2.90.
Is there a second? Commissioner Riccone, any discussion? Commissioner Keen? You have some?
What was his motion?
290. Any other discussion? Everybody understand what Mr. Taylor said? If you would, please register your vote. Ms. Cottrell, would you please tally the vote?
We have 9 yeses, 10 noes, and 0 abstentions.
Commissioner Beal?
Mr. Taylor, I have a question for you. If my math is correct, the amounts for the new employees and the pay raise is roughly 18 pennies. Is that correct?
Probably, I think it's about right. Let me double check.
It's
Maybe a
about
little less than that.
15.28, 7.2 million divided by 471.
How many did you say?
I'm sorry?
How many did you say about?
Roughly 18 pennies. I think I upped it a little bit.
17, 18 pennies.
Okay, so if my math serves correctly, 257 plus 18 would be 275. I'd like to propose 275.
Is there a second? Commissioner Harper, any discussion on 275? If you would, please register your vote. Would anyone like to change their vote? Ms. Cottrell, would you please tally the vote?
We have 4 yeses, 15 noes, and 0 abstentions.
Thank you, ma'am. Commissioner Smith?
Since we've already voted on 2.85 and 2.90, I'll make a motion to go in the middle and go to 2.88.
Is there a second? Commissioner Keen, any discussion? Commissioner Rasnick?
But if we go to 288, when will we have to increase our taxes again? 2 years? Yeah. So the next 2 years will be increasing?
Commissioner Gannon?
with the 288 rate and the amount that we're going to go in debt, in essence, we're really doing a 307. We're just doing it another way to fund it in order to drive it down. So if we would need another tax increase next year or 2 years or 3 years, we would need it regardless if we voted for 307 or 288 or 292. It doesn't matter because it's all the same. The only difference is we're funding, on Joe's, is we're funding about 10 million odd on capital projects, and we're paying for everything else. The only difference between that and 307 is we'd be paying off the debt instead of putting on debt. So if we need another tax increase, you're going to need it regardless of whichever rate that you're going to vote based on that because it's all equivalent.
Commissioner Leverett?
I just wanted to clarify that. Is that correct? If we voted on 307, we would have to again do a tax increase? Is that what I heard?
If he's asking if we went to 288 and borrowed the rest of the money to fund everything that we want to do, capital projects, that's the same as doing a 307 with no borrowing. So if we think that we're going to have to raise rates in 2 or 3 years because it's 288 and we're borrowing money, well, you'd have the same subject at 307. So in 3 years, if you think we're going to have to raise rates again, you would have to do it, and it depends on what we cut, and this is all speculation, but you'd have to do it regardless because 288 plus borrowing is virtually the same as 307.
Essentially 307.
Yeah, because
that's why I don't understand why we just can't keep it at 307, you guys. I understand. We've been at 307 for how many years now, Mr. Taylor?
4.
We've been sitting at 307 for 4 years. That's all. Right? Is that correct? We've been sitting at 307 for 4 years.
This discussion is on the motion for 288. That's okay, Commissioner Smith?
While I understand we've been at 307 for several years, the assessments came out this year. And with the assessments being on a 5-year schedule now instead of a 3-year like it used to be in the past, people are seeing a bigger increase in the assessed value percentage that it raises. Like I said, especially in my district. I'm talking not just 30, 40% like some districts. I'm talking 40 to 80% or more because the land out there is considered prime. And the government knows that. So when they do an assessment, guess what? That land's going to be assessed at a higher value. All I'm asking is meet in the middle, not put the burden on the taxpayers all in 1 year. We're still going to pass a budget. And next year, we can come back and look at it again. Maybe we'll have to make some cuts the next year to keep it at the same rate, but that's fine. But we're not putting that tax burden on the citizens of Montgomery County in 1 year.
You know, would we not put the burden on them if we're taking out debt? Am I in the right? If we're taking debt, we're still putting a burden on taxpayers, aren't we?
Kind of venturing off the question.
I'm sorry.
288.
There it goes. I'd like to kind of answer that, though. With tax and with debt, Montgomery County is projected to grow 90,000 people in the next 20 years, according to UT, from what we've all been told. Some of these projects are going to help those citizens also. So you've got to allow them, when they get here, their tax dollars to help fund those things, even if it's on the end of it. That's fine. But is it great to pay interest? No. When we get to a point where we can start breaking even and paying down interest and paying down debt service, that's a great feeling. But a jump like this on the back of the citizens in 1 year is a terrible idea for those on fixed income and our elderly. Some of those people have had their house paid for years, and the only thing they pay every year is property taxes. But if they're on a set income and they end up having to pay $200, $300 more than they're used to paying every year, that's a pretty big deal to them. You know, it might not seem like much to most, but that would equate to, let's divide it by 12. That's that much a month. Whether it's $20 or $40 or $50, that hurts that person. And then they have to change their lifestyle because we wanted to try and erase some interest that we should be putting on the new residents who are coming in. Call for the question.
We have a motion and a second to amend Resolution 1974 to 288. If you would, please register your vote. Would anyone like to change their vote? Ms. Cottrell, would you please tally the vote?
We have 4 yeses, 15 noes, and 0 abstentions.
Thank you, ma'am. All right, we're back 1974. Commissioner Knight.
I'd like to make an amendment to set the tax rate at 2.76.
Is there a second? Commissioner Beal, any discussion? If you would, please register your vote. Would anyone like to change their vote? Ms. Cottrell, would you please tally the vote?
We have 2 yeses, 17 noes, and 0 abstentions.
Back to 1974. Commissioner King.
I would like to set the tax rate at 2.89.
Is there a second? Commissioner Garland Johnson, any discussion? Commissioner Pritchard?
No, I was,
Okay. There's a motion to amend Resolution 1974 to 289. If you would, please register your vote. Would anyone like to change their vote? Ms. Cottrell, would you please tally the vote?
We have 4 yeses, 15 noes, and 0 abstentions.
Thank you, ma'am. Commissioner Riccone.
You know, I'm reminded of my first year on budget, and we sat in there, and Commissioner Gannon, Commissioner Harper, Mayor, we're all in there. Someone else was there, I can't remember now, maybe Commissioner Vallejo's. And I remember at that point, we walked in there, and we maybe had $8 million in a reserve, and we heard stories, and I'm not trying to skew the numbers, so Jeff, please jump in. The county doing trans loans, and most of y'all sitting here haven't even seen a trans loan. Trans loan is when the county runs out of money during the year and can't pay the employees, so we borrow it from another fund. And those were bad times. And we had a huge tax increase back then because we had to get our house in order. And I feel like our house is in order. We're doing a good job. Somehow growth has gotten to be a bad word. And my parents live in a town that has no growth. That's a bad word. You have a town without growth or you stifle growth, you cannot turn that engine back on. We have growth. We are a growing and vibrant community. We have to fund the community, and we have to pay for what we're doing. We don't need trans loans. We don't need to set a tax rate at something that is not going to work going forward. I'll disagree with Commissioner Gannon a little bit. No matter what you set it at, you'll have to do an increase next year. I disagree with that. I think we can set it at a point to where we can set it and not forget it, but set it and put it on cruise control for a while and check the way the government's running and check our spending and to see our other sources of revenue. You know, we have the internet sales tax and other sources coming into play. That being said, I also point out that we've had many discussions in here and we've seen graphs that every time we lower it to the certified rate, we've lost all that gain, we've lost that money, and we're borrowing funds, and then shortly thereafter, we're right back up. And y'all have seen that stair-step graph. So lowering it never works. Clearly, 307 is not going to pass. We've discussed it several times. This might be something that I think is appropriate. I think it's too low, but I'm going to give it another shot. I'm going to make a motion to set it at 2.94. I'm trying not to duplicate a number again. I don't think we can do the same number twice, but if we can, I would do a different number, but I'm going to go 2.94.
Is there a second? Commissioner Garland Johnson. Any discussion? If you would, please register your vote. Would anyone like to change their vote? Ms. Cottrell, would you please tally the vote?
We have 9 yeses, 10 nos, and 0 abstentions.
Motion fails. Commissioner Pritchard?
I make a motion that we stay with the 307. I believe that we need to pay everything. Our budget has already been skinnied out, from what I understand, even down to a $4 debt. So therefore, we are down to the pennies. So I really think that 307 is what's going to take care of everything. We're not going to have to come back hat in hand and ask our constituents, who are taxpayers, to help us to service more debt. I believe in paying for what we have, not having to go in the hole just because of a number. We just need to go ahead and vote for 307. Thank you.
Well, that's what 1974 is, without any other amendments. Okay, we're now voting on 1974. If you would, please register your vote. Anyone want to change their vote? Ms. Cottrell, would you please tally the vote?
We have 7 yeses, 12 nos, and 0 abstentions.
Anything we do now be a motion to reconsider 1974. Commissioner Harper?
Thank you, Mayor. I'll make a motion to reconsider 1974.
Is there a second? Commissioner Riccone, if you would, please register your vote. Anyone want to change their vote? Excuse me, somebody has. Anyone want to change their vote? Ms. Cottrell, would you please tally the vote?
We have 18 yeses, 1 no, and 0 abstentions.
Thank you, ma'am. Anybody else want to throw a dart at the board? Commissioner Harper?
Let me try again with a little conversation here. The certified rate at 257 sets the tax collections for the county at exactly the same amount in gross as we had the year before. Therefore, there is no increase for inflation, no increase at all, period. So obviously, the rate has to be higher than 257. Mr. Conservative saying that, okay? So obviously, it's got to be greater than that. Let's try again at 2.825.
Is there a second?
Yeah, got to go 3 because we've already tried.
You second it, Commissioner Bill? All right. Any discussion on 2.825? If you would, please register your vote. Anyone want to change their vote? Ms. Cottrell, would you please tally the vote?
We have 5 yeses, 14 nos, and 0 abstentions.
Any other amendments? If not, our rules of procedure say we're going to vote on 1974 again. Commissioner Beal?
I would like to propose a rate of, because again, my biggest concern is the pay increases and the new employees. I would like to propose 2.75.
Have we voted on that yet?
2.755.
2.755?
It's a different number. I'm trying.
Is there a second? Commissioner Knight? Any discussion? If you would, please register your vote. Anyone want to change their vote? Ms. Cottrell, would you please tally the vote?
We have 2 yeses, 17 noes, and 0 abstentions.
Commissioner Woodruff?
It seems like 294 was a good number. The vote was 9 to 10. So I think I'd recommend that we set the tax rate at 293. That way give you the option to get us out of this hole that we're in.
Is there a second? Commissioner Riccone? Any discussion? If you would, please register your vote. Anyone want to change their vote? Ms. Cottrell, would you please tally the vote?
We have 9 yeses, 10 noes, and 0 abstentions.
Commissioner Knight?
I'd like to make a motion to set it at 2.77.
Is there a second? Commissioner Beal? Any discussion? If you would, please register your vote. Anyone want to change their vote? Ms. Cottrell, would you please tally the vote?
2 yeses, 17 noes, 0 abstentions.
Commissioner Pritchard?
I make a motion that we set it at 3.
I think 3's been voted on. Commissioner Riccone made that motion. Commissioner Bryant?
I make a motion for 2.99.
Is there a second? Commissioner Chandler, any discussion? If you would, please register your vote. Ms. Cottrell, would you please tally the vote?
We have 11 yeses, 8 noes, and 0 abstentions.
Thank you, ma'am. Our next item on the agenda is our nominating committee nominations. Commissioner Gannon, the floor is yours.
Not gonna do new business or old business?
Sir?
You're not gonna do new or old business?
I'm sorry.
New business or old business?
I don't think we have any.
Okay.
I think we've had enough.
Just checking. The nominating committee met today at 4:45 on July 15th. We would like to enter this nomination in as a motion for Legislative Liaison Committee. We nominate Rashida Leverett has been nominated to fill an unexpired term of Larry Riccone to expire July of 2020. And we enter that as a motion.
Is there a second? Commissioner Rasnick, any discussion? You would please register your vote. Anyone want to change your vote? Ms. Cottrell, would you please tally the vote?
We have 18 yeses, 0 nos, and 1 abstention.
Thank you, ma'am. And just as a matter of record under county mayor appointments, Commissioner Joe Creek is appointed to fill the unexpired term of Commissioner Larry Riccone with the term to expire January 2020 for the Museum Board of Trustees. Commissioners, under your announcements, you'll see, again, the legislative agenda items. If you have any suggestions, please email Ms. Newell or Ms. Smith, our PIO, or Melissa in the mayor's office. With no further business, I'll call on the sheriff to adjourn us.
Oh, yes, this Honorable Board of County Commissioners now stands adjourned. May God save this state and this Honorable Board of County